To whom or to what do you grant the authority, the access, the power to put yourself back together after life kicks you in the gut? Let me ask that again. To whom or to what do you grant access, the authority, the power to be the architect behind reassembling yourself after life kicks you in the gut? I suggest to you that the answer to that question is absolutely critical in how or if you walk this path of transformation. For years, I allowed past pains and prior hurts to be the driving force behind putting myself back together. And so what ended up happening is I just kept getting what I was always getting. I kept thinking the same thoughts, having the same feelings associated with those thoughts, and then I kept doing the same thing, so I kept getting the same results. To whom or to what do you grant the authority to be the architect behind putting yourself back together when life kicks you in the gut? See, it's not that life always kicks us in the gut, even though we go through seasons and sometimes things happen in threes. But what I suggest to you is that those times, those events, those kick in the gut events, they set the table. They create the template that becomes the foundation for how we respond to life in the days between, as I call them, the days between the major events in our lives, because that's where the majority of our time is lived, the days between. But this is life, and there's no doubt about it. It's like they say there's two types of sailors in the world, those that have run aground and those that are going to run aground. If you haven't had a major life shock, I certainly hope it holds off as long as it can, but it's coming. And so there's that old adage. It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. That's true. But I think we need to drill down in how we get back up, because I think it needs to be more nuanced and refined by that. How we get up is vitally important. If I just get up without any thought into who or what I allowed to help me back up, into the thought pattern that associates getting back up, into the associated feelings with that thought pattern and while I'm getting back up, then I'm going to stay stuck if I don't understand what really makes me tick. Because as I go through life, if I have a unhealthful response to getting kicked in the gut, then all of those little times I kind of get knocked on the chin. Let's say at work you get the 360 feedback and you go, that's not, that doesn't feel too good. Or maybe you're married and there's nothing like being married to let you know all of those little ways that you can have your buttons pushed. Because someone might say one thing and it just water off a duck's back, and then your spouse says it and it just dings you a little bit. But what I suggest to you is that it is in those major events, those times you truly get kicked in the gut, that are the foundation for how we respond to life. And there's only one thing we can control in this life. There's only one thing we can control. It's our response to it. The only thing we can control in this life is our response to it. And that's why it's so vitally important that we understand how we get back up, how we respond to life. And it needs to be done in a healthful manner. What I did for years is I allowed prior pains and past hurts to be the driving force in putting myself back together. So what I did is after I stood up, nothing had changed. So I kept doing what I was doing and I kept getting what I was getting. If you like what you got, keep doing what you're doing. If you don't, let's think about what we're doing. Let's think about how we stand back up. Let's think about the thoughts that we have as we're standing back up, and where do those thoughts come from? What are you going to do? Are you going to rely on some tagline in a commercial or some political campaign slogan or some half-truth from a Hollywood script? What are your foundational mantras? What are your foundational convictions that drive how you respond to life? As we all know, the formative years are 6 to 10, but there's no doubt that as we go through life, we have people influence us. Who's influencing your thoughts? Are they healthy? Are they true? See, we're mind, body, and spirit. We have one body, but we have these three expressions. And so if I'm only living in my head upstairs with no adult supervision, and only my mind is driving my response to life, that's not always going to be ideal. If just my body, how I feel, my emotions are driving all of my responses, that's not going to be ideal either. See, in my humble opinion, it's our soul, that still small inner voice that we all have, that is our connection to the eternal, and it is that should drive and influence how we build ourselves back together when we get kicked in the gut. Because it's just like lifting in the gym, right? We're literally tearing our muscles, and that scar tissue as it reforms is stronger than the prior tissue. Our emotional profile is no different. And so are we going to allow life to make us stronger or make us weaker? It's all a test, as a dear friend of mine says. It's all a test. And the test is, how are you going to respond to it? And so because we want that soul, that small, still, internal voice we all have, we want that to be the driver. We want that to be the main architect, because that is our connection to the eternal. See, we don't want the tactical, he said, she said, temporal aspects of this life to dictate how we respond, to drive how we respond. Now, there's no doubt there are ad hoc situations, and sometimes you can have really intense situations where you got to rely on instinct. But the vast majority of our time is spent in those days between, the significant events. And it's in the days between that we train ourselves, that we work on ourselves, that we improve ourselves. So when that next external shock comes, we're handling it that much better with emotional strength as the result of improving how we respond to all those little dings on the chin in the days between. So by the time we get to those major life events, right? Changing jobs, losing someone in life, maybe a financial stressor, whatever it may be. If we are working on ourselves in the days between, then by the time we get to that next external shock, we'll be that much stronger, that much sturdier to respond. And so we don't want our mind driving our response. We don't want our body, our feelings driving our response. What we want is that still, small inner voice to drive the rebuilding of ourselves after life kicks us in the gut. Because like I said, it is that spirit, that soul, that is our connection to the eternal. See, we live in the now, but we're guided by those eternal truths. See, it's that still small inner voice that will allow, for example, forgiveness to be the driving architect of putting us back together. Or maybe beauty to be the driving architect of putting us back together. And what I don't mean necessarily pretty. I don't mean pretty at all. What I mean is that we can honor and respect the beauty of a restored relationship, right? You can honor and respect the beauty of knowing that you're keeping your side of the street clean. You can honor the beauty of being able to lay your head on your pillow at night and be asleep in 5 minutes because your conscience is cleansed. So forgiveness is one of those eternal truths. Beauty, maybe courage, right? We need our soul to latch on to one of those eternal truths, those spiritual truths, and let that be the driving architect of how we put ourselves back together. It's that old adage of, it's not how many times you get knocked down, but it's how you stand back up, or how many times you stand back up. And I want to nuance that, right? It is It is how you stand back up. That's what we want to focus here at Soul Shift Coaching by David Hale. Learning how to respond to life and learning how to stand back up in a healthful manner so we can then start marching down life again that much stronger for it. The reason I talk about that mind, body, and spirit, that those three expressions that are in one body, because what we're really after, in my humble opinion, what I've experienced and what I have been fortunate enough to lead men and women down as well, the path, is that what we're really after is that alignment of our mind, body, and spirit. That's peace. That's true peace, when our mind and our body and our spirit are all pulling in one direction, in harmony. With the mind putting the body in check and the body putting the mind in check and the spirit softening the edges of the mind and the body. See, once we truly understand peace, it really informs what freedom looks like. Because freedom is not anarchy, right? Freedom is not doing whatever you want, whenever you want. I used to think that. But there's nothing worse than chasing that lie and then looking down at your hands and seeing that they're empty and you're all beat up. There's great responsibility with understanding what freedom is, because true freedom is understanding that it is how we ought to act. It's understanding that true freedom is having the power to respond to life as if we're that person we want to be. See, as we learn how to get back up in a healthful manner, each day we are literally recreating our future self, or creating our future self. And as we learn to get back up in a healthful manner with courage and beauty and forgiveness, those eternal truths, as they lead us in the path of rebuilding ourselves, it teaches us. It improves us. It matures us. And each time we do it, we are literally creating our future self. See, us humans got a lot of pros and cons, don't we? We have the mind is so powerful. We have the incredible ability to have one foot in the past, one foot in the future, and making a mess out of today. So when we learn to live in the present and live tactically, doing the things that we need to do day to day, but acting as if we are already that person that we're striving to be, that's how transformation is made. One day at a time. Acting our way into new thinking. Acting our way into emotional strength. Acting our way into emotional maturity. Building those response muscles. So whether we're punched in the gut or just tapped on the chin, we can respond as the person we want to be. There's nothing like having that mind, body, and spirit aligned and knowing peace and understanding the great responsibility that comes with freedom. Because once you know peace and understand what true freedom is, you can't help but reap a radical harvest of transformation. That's what I want. That's what I need. That's what I want. And that's what I'm after. And I would love to help you walk down that path as well. So go check me out at soulshift.org. If you like this content, please give it a thumbs up. And I look forward to working with you and walking with you as we respond to life exactly how we want our future self to respond to life, so that we can work toward that day in and day out, one day at a time, 1 degree at a time, so we can all yield, all reap that radical harvest of transformation that is always on the other side of discipline. Thank you for being here.